The wind screams across the cliffs of Sounion, tearing at the robes of an old man standing on the edge of the world. He does not blink. He does not sleep. He only watches the grey, churning water. He is a king, but in this moment, he is just a father, praying for a speck of white canvas on the horizon. But miles away, deep beneath the earth, there is no wind. There is no sky. There is only the crushing weight of silence, broken by the wet, heavy breathing of a nightmare waiting in the dark. To understand the horror of the dark, we must look to the blinding light of the Bronze Age. Crete, the superpower of the ancient Aegean. We think of them now as a lost civilization of peaceful artists, but power is never peaceful. The Minoans held the sea in an iron grip. Their ships, with high prows and banks of 50 oars, patrolled the trade routes, extracting wealth from the weaker mainland cities. Athens was one such city, not the white marble metropolis of philosophers, but a rugged, defensive town of warrior kings living in the shadow of the Cretan bull. And the price of their subjugation was not gold, it was blood. The tribute, a political stranglehold disguised as a ritual. Every 9 years, Athens had to send its future to die. 7 young men, 7 young women, stripped of rank, stripped of weapons, and shipped south to the palace of Knossos. They were not going to a prison, they were going to a larder. The myth tells us this was punishment for the death of King Minos' son. But history whispers a darker truth, that this was a calculated culling. By taking the best of the next generation, Crete ensured Athens would never rise. The Labyrinth was the ultimate instrument of state terror, a structure so complex, so disorienting that it broke the mind before the monster ever broke the body. The time for the third tribute had come. The wailing of mothers echoed off the rocky slopes of the Acropolis. But this time, the script changed. One man stepped out of the line of mourners. Theseus, the Prince of Athens. He was a man carved from the roughest stone of the mainland. He had already cleared the road from Troezen to Athens, hunting down the bandits who preyed on travelers. He was not a diplomat. He was a kinetic force, a unifier who understood that a king who does not bleed for his people is no king at all. He volunteered. He would take the place of a victim. He would sail into the belly of the beast, not to die, but to kill the fear that held his city by the throat. His father, King Aegeus, begged him to stay. The old king knew the odds. He knew that no one ever returned from the house of the double axe, but Theseus was adamant. Broken by grief, Aegeus extracted one promise, a signal. The tribute ship always sailed under black sails, a floating hearse for the damned. "If you survive," the king whispered, "tear down the black, hoist the white. Let me know, the moment your ship breaks the horizon, that my son lives." Theseus swore it. The oath was easy to make in the safety of the harbor. But oaths are heavy things to carry across a storm-tossed sea. The voyage south was a descent into dread. The Aegean in winter is a hostile place, short, violent waves that batter the hull like war hammers. By the time the coastline of Crete appeared, the 14 Athenians were exhausted, salt-stained, and terrified. Knossos loomed over the harbor. It was a city within a building, walls painted with dolphins and bulls, vibrant and terrifyingly alien to the mainlanders. They were paraded before King Minos, the son of Zeus, a man who wore his hubris like a crown. But in the court of the tyrant, Theseus found a fracture in the armor. Ariadne, the daughter of Minos. She watched the barbarian prince from the shadows of the frescoed halls. She saw something different in him, not the resignation of a sheep led to slaughter, but the cold calculation of a wolf. She knew the secret of her father's power. She knew the labyrinth was designed to kill hope before it killed the man. That night, she came to his cell. She offered him a bargain. She would give him the key to the maze, and in return, he would take her away from this island of blood. The key was not a map. It was a ball of linen thread, dyed deep red. "The blade is for the beast," she told him, her voice trembling. "The thread is for the mind. Anchor it to the door. Unwind it as you go. It is the only way you will ever see the sun again." The doors of the labyrinth groaned open. The air that rushed out smelled of stale musk, wet earth, and old copper. Theseus left the others at the entrance. He tied the thread to a bronze ring in the threshold. He stepped into the dark. 1 step, 2. The light from the entrance faded to a pinprick, then vanished. He was alone. The architecture was a weapon. Corridors turned back on themselves. Sloping floors disoriented his sense of balance. The silence was absolute, amplifying the thud of his own heart against his ribs. Callback. Miles away, on the cliffs of Sounion, the storm had not broken, and neither had the king. Aegeus stood in the rain, his eyes locked on the empty sea, waiting for a sign that would never come in time. Back in the deep, Theseus stopped. He felt a vibration in the floor, a rhythmic, heavy tremor. Thud, thud. Then, a sound that froze the blood, the scrape of a hoof on stone, the wet snort of lungs the size of wine casks. Theseus dropped the torch. He drew his sword. The bronze blade didn't ring like steel. It made a dull, hungry sound as it cleared the scabbard. The Minotaur, Asterion, the shame of Minos. He was a towering slab of muscle and rage, a prince cursed by the gods to be a monster. He smelled of rotten power. He roared, a sound that shook the dust from the ceiling, and charged. It wasn't a duel. It was an avalanche. Theseus threw himself to the side. The beast smashed into the wall, cracking the limestone. Stone chips exploded like shrapnel. Theseus scrambled up, the red thread tangled around his boot. He slashed out. Crunch. The bronze bit into the bull's shoulder. It didn't slice clean. It hacked. The beast bellowed, swinging a fist like a mace. It caught Theseus in the chest, sending him skidding across the floor. The sword, the thread, the pain. The Minotaur turned, lowered its horns, and prepared to finish it. Theseus stood up. His ribs burned, his vision blurred, but he remembered the bull leapers he had seen on the palace walls. You do not block the bull. You flow with it. The beast lunged. Theseus didn't retreat. He stepped in. He drove the sword upward. With every ounce of strength in his body, he thrust the bronze blade into the soft flesh of the throat. He twisted. Hot blood sprayed the darkness. The Minotaur staggered, clutching at the metal in its neck. It fell to its knees, then to its side. A final, gurgling breath rattled through the chamber, and then silence. The monster was dead, but the maze remained. Theseus stood over the carcass, feeling no glory, only the cold breath of survival. He sheathed his sword and found the thin red line gleaming in the dark. Hand over hand, he followed it, his lifeline back to the world above. That night, Theseus, Ariadne, and the survivors fled Crete. They stole a ship, crippled the Minoan fleet, and rowed until their hands bled, putting black water between themselves and the island of death. They stopped at Knossos to water the ship, and there Theseus faced a trial no blade could win. Ariadne slept on the sand, his savior, his betrayer's daughter, still bound to Crete. Could he bring her to Athens? Was it gratitude he felt, or guilt? Whether by divine command or cold necessity, he left her. The ship slipped away in silence, abandoning her to the dawn. But in that haze of guilt and relief, Theseus forgot the one thing that mattered, the sails. The white canvas lay folded and forgotten in the hold. As the storm cleared over Sounion, King Aegeus saw Theseus's ship approach, but its sails were black. Believing his son dead, grief consumed him, and he stepped from the cliff into the sea that now bears his name. Theseus returned a hero crowned in tragedy, having slain the Minotaur, but lost his father through a forgotten promise. The Aegean stands as a reminder that every victory has a cost, and though we may escape our monsters, we cannot escape the consequences of our own heart. Subscribe to Saga Weaver. Join us next time as we pull another thread from the tapestry of history and uncover the legends time tried to bury.